A new Texas law that prescribes how race-related subjects are taught in schools has parents and educators scratching their heads in confusion. The latest incident calling the law into question happened in Texas's Carroll Independent School District, which is in suburban Dallas, when the district's director of curriculum and instruction reportedly told teachers, and I'm quoting here, make sure that if you have a book on the Holocaust, that you have one that has that has other perspectives. All of this is related to Texas's new House Bill 3979 law that just went into effect last month. The law requires teachers who discuss current events or controversial events to present numerous points of view. Joining us with his point of view is Daniel Miller, who is the president of TexitNow.org. His organization is proposing that Texas secede from the Union and become an independent nation. Daniel, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
All right, so let's start here. What is your main concern with this new law, House Bill 3979?
Well, look, let me be clear. I don't have a concern with 3979. I think the concern that we should all have is that we have to have a piece of legislation like this particular House bill to prevent our public school systems from being little indoctrination centers for our children. One of the things that I think COVID, at least the COVID lockdowns and virtual schooling has done is it's made parents quite aware of some of the things that are being taught in their schools. That was, in fact, my understanding is the genesis of 3979 was to ensure that when teachers are teaching our children and they are engaging in modern controversial issues, for example, critical race theory, that at a very minimum, what's happening is that there are balanced perspectives. And you've got this incident here at this particular school district with this administrator saying this horrendous thing about the Holocaust. And let's just cut to the chase. If we have a director of curriculum or a teacher who does not understand the plain language of the bill and does not understand that the Holocaust is not a controversial issue, it is a historical fact, then perhaps if their comprehension is that low, they should not be instructing our children.
And Daniel, on its face, one would think that exposing various viewpoints as part of an academic setting is healthy. Where do you think the law should be drawn? And I know you just stated that it's not a very controversial issue, it's historical. But obviously, teachers or academias, they don't seem to be taught this when they're being educated. So where is that line supposed to be drawn?
Yeah, right. I guess neo-Marxism rolls downhill, from their indoctrination in the universities. But look, the language of the bill is pretty straightforward. If they're dealing with these modern controversial issues, particularly in the political sphere, they should at least provide opposing viewpoints. And I think we've heard story after story after story of children coming home and being indoctrinated by an activist teacher. And that's not what Texas parents want their tax dollars used for. They want them to learn reading and math and language and science. They don't want them learning critical race theory. And if these issues are going to be brought up, the teacher should be a facilitator of discussion and not a programmer.
So let me ask you a more theoretical question. Is the fact that we are seeing states legislate how history, if you will, is taught, is it the result of a legacy of teaching his story as opposed to a full, balanced, and inclusive history?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what we have seen time and time again, and especially recently, is, our schools are being turned into little Democrat factories. Where, they're being taught things such as, all of our history, American history, Texas history are wrong. I mean, we are literally fighting a battle right now over whether or not the Alamo was fought over freedom and independence or to perpetuate slavery. The fact that we're having to have these battles with these people who are arguably historical revisionists who have ultimately a political agenda tells you that this bill is more critical now than it has ever been.
And Daniel, if you and your group are successful in your endeavors, you would still be working with very similar leaders in place. How do you propose changing issues like this if those people will still be in their roles?
Sure. We know that so many of the challenges that we face here in Texas, politically, economically, culturally, flow from outside of Texas, or at least have their roots there. But look, the bottom line is that what Texans ultimately want right now is they want a Texas governed by Texas. They don't want a Department of Education from Washington, D.C., telling parents that they are not the primary stakeholders in their children's education. What Texans want, and I think what many people in the states are asking themselves now, is knowing what we know about the federal government. If we were voting or not, if we were not talking about Texit, but talking about whether or not to join the union, they're asking themselves the question: would we today join the union, knowing what we know? And many are finding that the answer is no. Ultimately, for us, we believe that the best people to govern Texas just happen to be Texans and not 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats from Washington, D.C.
All right, Daniel, we'll have to leave the conversation there, but thanks so much for joining us this morning. Thanks so much for kind of broadening the marketplace of ideas with this conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.